So, firstly, we'll do the brick wall. Because all of these objects are the same, different objects, all these objects are different objects, and they are the base of an object. I don't need to use a quote-unquote base texture. I have turned up the metallic so if you know what I'm doing. So I'll lower it down to what it was originally, and now I'll go shifted color ramp. I'll apply the color ramp into the base color, and for the factor here I'll put in a noise texture. So now this factor goes into the noise texture. As you can see, it's plastered on the wall. I can make other details with this, but I won't. Now, you also need a Node Wrangler add-on. If you go back to add-ons, type in Node, turn on Node Wrangler, and that's it. So you use Control+T to add the Node Wrangler, and I'll put it from generated to object. So each one of these objects has a different normal texture. I mean, it's basically the same texture, but wrapped over and over again. I'll put the detail to 15. Now also plug this factor into something else, and that is bump height. And bump height goes into the normal. Now, this is far too rough, all of you know that, so I'll lower it down. Shortly said, what bump does is that it creates an illusion of roughness on low poly objects by telling the Blender and other programs to bend the light differently in that area. This is precisely 0.2. You can copy my setup if you want. I'll continue working on the colors now. You can change the scale. I will leave it at 5K because that turns out to be perfect. You can also change the details to 20, but it doesn't do any more difference, as you can see. So now I will go. For this color, I'll take a nice, let's say, soft orange. Yeah, soft brown, something pleasant to the eye. I'll turn up the brightness a bit, and now for the dark spots I will turn up the lighting and change it. I suggest that all of you do this on your own. Yeah, that looks about right. That's how a wall should look like. I'm just thinking about how this should look like. This looks relatively correct. I'll turn up the lighting here. So it looks, that's perfect. That is actually perfect. Alright, now I will add the same texture here and I'll copy it. But this time I'll change the colors up a bit. I'll make them smoother, lighter. And I'll change this color from orange to yellowish, and I'll make it darker. Something like this. It looks nice, it isn't too sharp in the eye, and it reminds you of those nice homes. I'll apply the same material here and here. So now for the upper material, I'll select material 2, copy it, and I'll change the colors again. Very simple, very easy, very fucking easy. So I will make it a bit darker, and I will make the colors a bit more gray, because that's what I want, of course. Make this a bit darker as well. I also don't want these textures to be connected, so I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna change this to texture. This doesn't change anything. UV. Now this will change a lot of things. Nothing for the good, because you can see these stretch lines here. I'm gonna put it back into generated. this looks far too smooth and far too shit. Back to object. Yippee. So, the thing that you can do in this case is put the distortion on, so it's a bit higher. Also change this back to point. I'm also gonna do the same thing here, but only a bit, and I'll put on clarity, so it's different. I'll also put this like that, and now it looks mostly different. I'm gonna save it again, and now we will get to constructing the scene. And the plane, of course, the plane. I'm gonna scale it by 50x. Control A, apply scale, of course. So now, what I'm gonna do is go into shading, add another material. Let me zoom out so I can see it correctly. I'll bump up the metallic, so it's 0.75. I'll lower the roughness down a bit, 0.4, and I'll turn the color so it's a nice dark color. Now I'll add the noise texture, color ramp, plug the color ramp into the base color, noise texture into the color ramp. Now you can see how it looks. I'm gonna turn the scale up a lot, detail to the maximum. Now clarity, I'll put it so it's high. Distortion, I'll lower the distortion to 0.1, minimal. Now clarity, so it looks bigger. I'll turn the scale up even more, like that. And now I will do the same bump trick. Bump, no, not strength, bump, height. This goes into the normal here. Now this will be too tough, of course, very tough. And we don't want it to be tough, we want it to be subtle. We want it to be calm. 0.1 to 5 would be almost a perfect value. So now we're gonna make the white color a bit darker, not completely dark, but a bit darker. And this black color a bit lighter. Like that. Perfect. You can construct a different scene, I'm just doing this so it's a bit simpler for beginners. Nothing special, nothing crazy. Nothing. I also turned up the scale by 5. And so I can have a nicer texture on my brick wall. Now, Shift A, add light, area light. The area light is pointing downwards, so I'm gonna move it up like that. I'll move it to the left on the y-axis, a solid 10 meters on the x-axis. I'll rotate it on the y so it's facing this way. No, not like that. Oh yeah, it's me going for the normal, of course. Rotate on the z-axis like this. And I'll move it up a bit more, this time without actually doing proper alignments. Now I'm gonna add another light. Which will go to the left. And this will be a weaker light. Just so everyone knows. GZ. And now I'm gonna go. There are no modifiers here. Fuck. So I guess I'm gonna go Shift A, mesh. No, not mesh. Light. Area. GZ. 11 meters up. 11 meters back. Something degrees. And I'll point it like that. And I'll go and lock the z-axis by going Shift C. And now I'll go select all of these lights and I'll move them up. I'll select, first of all, I'll go back into layout, and I forgot to add a texture on the inner wall. Yes. Because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna use material 1, copy it, and set it to be a light color. So max this out, set it to be white, set this around the middle, set to be darker, set this to also be slightly darker so it's like melter. And nice, perfect. Now I'll go back to shading. Actually I need to go back into layout. I'll go and select all of these objects and I'll join them together. Now I'll go into shading, GZ, and I'll move it up. This looks relatively fine. I'll adjust the lights a bit. And this light will be rotated on the x-axis so it's facing up negative 130. And now I'll move it so it's somewhere below the object, because this is how product visualizations are done. Rotate Z. I'll turn so it faces this part of the wall. Now, because we want to capture this part, this exact part of the wall, but only like this area, I'll go and add a camera, and I will go here, set all the rotations to be 0. Now this will force the camera to face on the positive y-axis. We'll move the camera up first of all. Now G Shift Z. I'll go like this. GZ. Now rotate Z 90 degrees. We won't do 90, we'll do 30. And now rotate X to be somewhere around 65. Rotate Y. Reverse those steps. So we'll go and forget about rotation on the Z-axis for now. Rotate X and rotate on the X for 60. Rotate Z for 30. Now, if I press, I believe, I forgot 0 with my numpad, I can see where the camera is pointing, and I can move it while it's pointing, and I can also rotate it because it's selected as my object. So I'll set it here, and now I can't really scale the camera, so I'll just go Shift Z, go like this, GZ, like that, rotate X, rotate Z actually, and I'll just make it so the camera is relatively nicely aligned with everything. I really do mean everything. So I'll set it so it's kind of like that, GZ. It's a bit complicated, it's a bit tricky, but you eventually get the hang of it. The trick is not to show this light because it's gonna bounce to the lower part. So either we can do this part and it's gonna look like this, or actually you can see it like that, but or I'm gonna move it up a lot, now GZ, and I'll move it back a lot more. Now I'm gonna go 10 GY GZ. Now I have gone a bit too far back. Damn, this shit's hard. So now GY. We really want the wall to be like a centerpiece of our image. So something like this. And to cover this light, I'll go and GZ, move it like that. G Shift Z. Something like that. Yeah, I think that works. Now I'll go into shading. I'll turn this into render mode. Important thing, go into render, this part, set to cycles, and set to GPU compute. Now I'm gonna go to area lighting, and I'll turn the power up so it's a lot stronger. Something like that. Yeah. Now I'm gonna select this area light and do the same. 9000. That's a bit too harsh. I'll set it to 450, 4500, and I'll select this light and set this light to be 9000. This is still a bit too harsh, so I'll shrink it. I want it to be able to. I want the grooves to be seen. I'll set this to 750. Yeah, that is still a bit too harsh. I'll shrink it down. Yeah, that seems correct. I'll save it, and now we'll go render image, or click F12. And now this is how our image looks. I'll close it. I won't render it yet. We'll go to output, change the resolution if you want. I'll multiply it. Because my PC is good, I'll multiply it by 4 a couple of times, you know. So now set the format always with PNG if it already is in PNG. Then we'll go and find our thing magic and select this as the output. Now we are going to go render image, and wait for it to render. It'll take some time, but it will get there. Also, you should, if you have a bad PC, you should change the amount of samples, because that's how many times Blender repeats in the cycles operation. That's why it's called cycles, because it uses noise to quote-unquote calculate the pixels which are rendered. It saves resources, quite a bit of resources actually. This doesn't look that good, but it's passable very nicely. Also, if you want different textures on each of these parts, you should separate this, every other part basically. So it's a different texture. Just so there are no repeating patterns, but this works too. When going over all of this footage will for sure not be fun. And now that when the render is done, you're gonna wait for the denoising to finish. Very, very important. I really do mean very. Perfect. Now you're gonna go to image, save as, find again your folder, and call it wall or something like that, and save it. Now you can close it. You can close Blender.